Hello YouTube, this is Asmodeus, bringing you the JagdPanther. Tank destroyer based on the Panther chassis. Um, Came pretty late in the war, probably 1943, served to 45, maybe even as late as 1944. So it wasn't around for very long, but the things that it could do were pretty phenomenal, considering just how tough the Panthers were. This thing was just as tough, and in some respects even tougher, because of the gun. Now, granted, I'm not using the historically accurate gun on this. I am using the top gun for the game, which is the 105mm Pak 45 L52. The gun that the JagdPanther historically used was the German 88 Pak 43 L71, which is the same gun the Tiger used. And that being that, it gave the Panther an the JagdPanther an exceptional kill range. Armor-wise, pull up the stats as soon as I find it down here. Here we go. Pretty crap hit points, but that's very, very common with tank destroyers up until about tier 8 or 9, I believe. But it's a fairly light tank destroyer under my configuration, which is fully upgraded and fully decked. Comes out to 56.5 tons, just slightly over it, with a engine horsepower of 750, which that mean this top speed of 46 kilometers per hour is fairly reasonable. At least on the flat or going downhill, you'll easily reach those speeds. On soft terrain and going up hills, this thing isn't that fast. It turns reasonably well at 29 degrees per second. Hull armor, 80mm at the front, which I think is 10mm less at the front than the Panther has. I could easily be mistaken, but I could swear it's supposed to be 90. 50 at the side and 40 at the rear. A tier 1 tank could kill this thing from the side and the rear. It's got a little bit of sloping going on at the sides, huge amount on the back, which is the same angle as the front. The Germans did that to help avoid some of the problems that T-34 had. Being completely angled meant that it cut down on just how much space was on the inside of the chassis. Fairly large crew compartment, which is, from there to there, basically. A little bit of space there at the back and a little extra at the front. Kind of a tall tank, and here's a good example. The Sherman Easy 8, which is the one directly in front of this thing, stood a full turret height higher than the JagdPanther. And the Shermans were tall tanks. Those things stood 10 to 12 feet tall, maybe even taller. I could easily be mistaken. So this thing is almost a full meter shorter than the Easy 8. And I know it's about a meter because that's roughly how tall those turrets were. But continuing on with the stats, the gun fires 7.32 rounds a minute, which means this thing cranks out a shot roughly every 7 to 8 seconds, give or take. Has a good traverse speed, but a very limited traverse range. Pretty good view range and very good signal range. My crew's not at 100%, though for a tank destroyer, 6 cents on the commander. Um, the gunner, snapshot might not be such a bad idea, though I'd rather personally go with camouflage. Driver definitely going to get clutch braking. The radio operator, let's see what skills it is he gets. I'm pretty sure. Here we are. Situational awareness, definitely going to get that one. And for the loader, since hitting the ammo rack on these isn't that hard, I'm probably going to go with safe stowage. But camouflage, very, very high on the list. For equipment fit, I've gone with the coated optics since I end up moving the tank around a lot, both in repositioning and having to constantly move to keep tracking the target. Gun rammer just to help crank out shells even faster, and a camo net to help increase the stealth modifier. Now I might go with improved ventilation once I have camo on all my crew, just to help everything else, or I might just leave it as it is. I haven't completely decided yet. Ammo, standard AP, pretty good. Average penetration 150 to 250, and average damage of 240 to 400, which is pretty good. Anything that hits, it's definitely going to feel it. And then I also carry around a small load of APCR, and that I keep in reserve specifically for very, very hard to crack tanks, like your E75s and stuff like that, where my standard penetration might not be quite enough to go through what I'm shooting at. Personally, I don't bother with high explosive. Only thing that's good at taking out is artillery and light tanks. The damage is good on them. The explosion radius is crap. But, oh no, pretty good tank destroyer. Though the problems I've found with it, the second I get spotted, I get nuked. Pure and simple. Oh, and you might note from my previous videos, I used to be in for HQ. That is no longer the case, as I am transferring clans from Fur HQ to the Fur E, which is the Fur Clan's Clan Wars division. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm currently grinding up to the IS-8. And once I get it and kind of get a feel for the tank on the live server, I'll probably be bringing some videos with that. But this is a video about the Panther, specifically the JagdPanther, one of the more famous German tank destroyers of the Second World War. Other notable tank destroyers, let's pull up the tech tree here real quickly, find the tank destroyers. Oh dear. These were utter garbage. Mostly because of their design and limitations that their designs brought. The Hetzer, which is improperly named, isn't officially recognized by any real German historians or tank designers. What it is a tank destroyer based on the Panzer 38T, which is this little guy over here. I don't remember what they actually designated it, but historians will say that it wasn't actually called the Hetzer. It's something that the Allies called it. The Stromgeschütz 3, um, those were good tank destroyers. Very, very famous tank battles were fought with the Stugs and their variants. Um, some of the best German tank aces actually drove these. And I can't think of any of the names at the moment, but it was a pretty good tank destroyer. The JagdPanther 4 was also reputed to be a pretty good tank destroyer, but the problem was is the JagdPanther 4 was outdated technology by the time it even entered service. Um, the Panzer IV chassis had pretty much been retired in favor of the Panthers and Tiger heavy tanks. But it was a good tank destroyer. Very, very low profile and carried a very good gun. But the thing is, these three tank destroyers right here were the first true German tank destroyers. This one was kind of an afterthought that the German army just decided to cobble together. It's like, we got a bunch of these old Panzer 38Ts and other captured tanks, so they just slapped a angled hole or top piece on the chassis, slapped a gun in it, and put people in it, and off it went. And it actually came out to be a very, very successful tank destroyer. JagdPanther 2, work of fiction. Ferdinand, utter garbage. And the Germans will later regretted ever making these things. This one is kind of an oddity, though, because if I remember right, it has the machine gun turret ball right over here on the front. That is a misclassification by World of Tanks, or more specifically, Wargaming. If it does in fact, and I can't prove it at the moment, have the machine gun port, it's not the Ferdinand, it's the Elephant. Basically, same tank destroyer, just a different designation. These things were utter failures. Jagdtiger was a very, very scary tank destroyer to meet. Mostly because of the gun it carried, and it carried a 128mm cannon, which was the largest tank-mounted gun. And I use the word tank loosely on this one. And it can be argued that the SU-152 and ISU-152 had a bigger cannon, which wouldn't be true. The SU-122s used a howitzer, and the ISUs used field artillery cannon, basically. Though this was the largest purpose-built cannon put onto a tank chassis, I guess would be the more accurate way of saying that. Mass-produced, 80 vehicles. Doesn't sound like a lot. Mass production of armored vehicles is a curious thing, because there really wasn't a lot of them, especially in the case of the JagdPanther, which is the focus of our video here. There was roughly about 400 of them made, and maybe 300 some of those actually saw service. Let's pull up the Panther, see how many. Yeah, right there. 5,700 compared to right around 400 produced. That's a rate of over 100 Panthers built to one JagdPanther. So, see, that's a curious thing here. Since we're actually talking about the JagdPanther, might as well bring up the tank it was built on. The JagdPanther actually has better frontal armor. That's weird. Though that extra 5mm might be part of the gun mallet, but that wouldn't make any sense. It's actually the frontal hull. Wargaming? I think you made a goof. Buff the JagdPanther's front armor, even if it is by 5mm. But yeah. This is actually what can be considered mass production, because there's several thousand of them built. And compared to a lot of other German vehicles, like your Tigers, your King Tigers, mind you, we're focusing specifically on tanks, or your JagdTigers, your Ferdinands, stuff like that, there really wasn't a lot of these built. There was tons upon tons of the medium tanks built. Tons of light tanks too. Germans just didn't have the production to crank out a bunch of heavy tanks, especially tanks like the King Tiger. According to Wargaming's facts, there is 489 of them built. Yeah, and they actually had 2 different turrets on them as well. But when I get to the King Tiger, I'll talk about that. As you can see, I got a long way to go before I can dream of talking about the King Tiger. But anywho, back to the focus of our video. I'm wandering around a lot. Weak spots, joke. The armor, it doesn't bounce much, even for how well angled it is. Unless it can get up against lower tier tanks, and it's one of the top tier tanks in the game. Facing off against heavier, larger tanks like your, well, pretty much any heavy tank is going to be able to poke holes in this thing. At its own tier and above. But if it's one of the top dogs, weak spots, lower glacis, machine guns port, the driver's view hatch, that hatch up there, the ventilation part right there, all good spots to go for. On the sides, if you don't have a very high pen gun, or you're very, very unfortunate, low tier tank like a tier 4 or something, right there underneath, just above the tracks and below the side skirt, right in there is a good spot to shoot. But you catch this thing on the side or rear, have at it. Artillery loves wrecking this thing's day, because it's good square target to shoot at. It's quite lengthy too. You got that nice long back end that's pretty much flat to any artillery strike. And if you're unlucky, you hit that right there, it'll just bounce down into the engine deck. And it will burn. Let's see. Historically, I really can't say much about this tank. Yeah, they're good tank destroyers, but you just don't hear about them that much. It's hard finding any combat reports that involve the JagdPanther. Um, got a tow hitch right there, exhaust pipes right there. Not sure what the heck this thing is. Might be part of a winch, maybe? I don't know. Little ports, access ports to get into the bottom part of the engine deck. Got a hatch there. Cooling fans right there. Vents for the engine on the back and front quarters. That's an air intake right there, kind of like a carburetor, or something that leads to the carburetor. These things could be fitted with snorkels if they had to do any deep water crossing. Same with the Tigers. Could also be fitted with a snorkel. But like the Tiger, they're fairly heavy tanks and get bogged down in the mud. And one of the Germans' greatest engineering feats, especially for that time period, one of their greatest features also became one of their greatest weaknesses, and that would be the torsion bar suspension. Um, the torsion bar suspension on its own is still used today on every main battle tank. There isn't a main battle tank on the field that you can think of that doesn't have torsion bar suspension. It works that good. And they just haven't found anything to replace it. And each one of these wheel sets is on its own suspension course. Like this wheel has its own bar, that one, that one, that one, that one, all have their own bars. Now the drive wheel, which is this one right up here, and the running wheel, which is this one back here, are fixed. Their line goes directly in through the chassis and doesn't move. But that's the good thing about it. You got a very smooth riding tank, and any little obstacles you bump over, the wheels just go up and over, no problem. But that's the way this is set up became a problem, especially over in Russia, and later on into the Western Front during the winter. Is mud gets in between these wheels when the tank's running during the day and everything's all sorts of squishy and whatnot, and at night it would freeze, locking these wheels together. And then some poor schmuck would have to go in and chisel out all that mud and get these wheels unstuck. And then they'd probably have to take the track off, roll the tank off the track, jack it up, and take off all the road wheels to make sure none of the wheels are damaged and to finish cleaning them. And if you got a bunch of Russian tanks coming in at you at night or in the early hours of the morning, which is what the Russians were famous for doing after they discovered that little weakness, you can't go anywhere. You're screwed. You're sitting duck. And like I said, the Russians caught on to that little fact and started planning their attacks for nighttime and very early in the morning, like crack of dawn. So these tanks like this, or tanks that have their suspension set up like that, were useless in those type of attacks. But the Germans, as crafty as they are, started wising up to that and would often keep these things fairly warm or near a heat source so they wouldn't freeze up. Or if that wasn't available for them to do, they would park these things where they could fire at where the Russians were likely to attack from, which was generally head on, as Russian military doctrine stated. They would just waltz headlong into battle, and the Germans would just open up on them. And they'd have the tanks spread out throughout the lines in their respective companies, and they'd open fire on any tanks that came over with the infantry or whatever. They just pretty much used them like point defense weaponry and field artillery. Tanks like the Tiger had a bit more of an advantage because they actually have a turning turret that they could use. Yeah, help them deal with things that aren't directly in front of them. JagdPanther didn't have that advantage. But it worked to an extent. Made every time the Russians came forward very, very costly. And there are tons of battle reports where the Russians would just suicide rush German defenses, and they'd just be killed off by the thousands. Not tens or hundreds, but thousands upon thousands an attack. And, give credit where credit is due. The Russians fight like ants. They're tenacious, and they try and use overwhelming force, and they won't let up. Pretty hardy folk, I'll give them that. Give credit where credit is due. That doesn't mean the Germans are soft. No, they're pretty infamous for putting up some pretty heroic fights. The Battle of Teutoburg Forest, back in the ancient times, is a notable one. Tons and tons of battles throughout World War II, particularly on the Eastern Front and down in Liberia, or certainly during the battle for the Ardennes. Germans with just a few numbers could stop entire advances. Well, relatively few numbers. And they could just, like I said, stop entire advances or slow them down while their bulk of their force relocated, dug in and set up for ambushes and stuff. So, they gave everybody hell when it came to fighting. American General George S. Patton stated that we're fighting the wrong people. He honestly thought we should have been helping Germany fight the Russians. Well, who's to say how that one would have went? Honestly, don't know. People looked at him pretty funny for that one. Though that quote shows just how much respect one of America's most famous generals, well, famous and notorious all in one package, um, respected the Germans. He respected their fighting prowess, their spirit, and just everything about their approach to warfare. Now, that doesn't mean I actually. Oh dear. Now I gone and said something I gotta fix. Um, in terms of the way they fought war, the Germans very, very, very good at it. Um, do I agree with the political doctrine behind the soldiers that were fighting in World War II for the Germans? No. No, I don't. Um, I myself am part German, very proud to be, though that is. Oops. Um, hmm, a very, very touchy subject. And the Germans, rightfully so, don't like bringing it up. I know some people, well, I've actually stumbled across a bunch of people that as soon as they find out you're German, they start ragging on you. And it's um, all here in the States. Uh, People go, "Oh, you're a Nazi or whatever," you know. It's like, oh dear, you're ignorant. And those people just like to make other people's lives miserable to make them feel better about their own crappy ass lives. But a little interesting fact since we're on that topic. Uh, a lot of the German soldiers weren't actually Nazis per se. Um, they were simply soldiers fighting for their country and doing what soldiers do. They go to fight and die for somebody else or somebody else's ideals. Or they fight to protect their homeland. And history will show, while a conquering German army is very powerful, um, but a defensive German army being pushed back into their homeland, or even fighting in their homeland, becomes a completely different animal. They are absolutely ferocious. Um, there's several Allied reports of the Germans just lighting up the sky with artillery barrage, tracer fire from the machine guns, everything. And some of it was shock and awe, but all of it came down to um, a display of power. Even though they were being beaten back, um, they didn't give up until the very end, when everything crashed down around them. And even after the remaining heads of state officially surrendered to the Allies and the Russians, um, there were still soldiers fighting. And that same fighting spirit could be seen in the Pacific theater with the Japanese. That never give up, never say die, never surrender attitude. They would literally fight till their last breath. Who knows, even then they might still be fighting. It's just, and that Oh dear. I lost my train of... No, I didn't lose my train of thought. I'm just kind of trying to figure out how to word my thought. That kind of fighting spirit is kind of a rare trait nowadays. The kind of person that will stand up to overwhelming odds, or overwhelming odds, I should say, and to do what is necessary to protect their way of life. Um, Honestly, it's a trait I think a lot of people don't have. And even in soldiers, I think a lot of them don't have that trait, and it's a, something that transcends the mere survival instinct. There's something more to it, and uh, you've seen it in Russia at Stalingrad. You've seen it in Germany at Berlin, and many, many other places. Um, and that's the thing, though. A lot of people that have that spirit die. And it's that spirit that separates a warrior from a soldier. A soldier will go and die where he's told to die. A warrior will go to where he's told to die and die on his own terms. But enough of that discussion. I've prattled on for more than long enough. Let's get some gameplay in. Let's see how the old JagdPanther does. Alright, tier 8 battle. Not the worstest thing can face, but still, the odds are not in my favor this match. It's a lot of tier 8 tanks. Things I definitely gotta watch out for is that Tiger 88, the ACM Elite 48, Panther 2, depending on the gun he's got, Super Pershings, and Nuisance. Basically anything with a lot of armor and a big gun is something I should be concerned about. I did forget that I finally got it to where I can play audio over my speakers, and I've got to tinker with some of the volume settings. First thing I see does not bode much in the way of hope. We got a T-29 at KV2, that's all fine and good, but if any of their tier 8s go over there, those guys are pretty well hosed. Let's see, we got an IS using either the 85 or the 100mm. So he's fairly stock. Looks like he's got the second turret though, so he might not have the 122 unlocked, or maybe he just doesn't like using them. Got people complaining already. That's one thing that aggravates me about the player base, is few people think they know exactly what's right for every circumstance. Fact of the matter is, like an actual battlefield, everything changes. The problem being is a lot of the people that play don't adapt to what's actually happening. They're trying to relive past experiences. And totally donked my shot there. Pitiful display of the accuracy of the German guns. And that Type 62 gets away before I can plug a shot at him. Don't see anything over there. They got a Super Pershing in Valley with a KV-1S. So that's about all I can see of that. Let's see, it looks like Type 62 might be coming back out. Nope. Our Type 62 nailed him. Okay, they got a JagdPanther 88, T-43, IS, and a T-32 all over there. So I really would like to get more in the middle of the map and start plugging away at them from the sides if I can, or maybe even try and go around and catch somebody in the rear. Hoping this Indian Panzer, or Indian Panzer even, will go forward and spot for me around the corner and I'll help him. But I'm going to be ballsy. I want to nail that Scout Panther. Goodbye. Took a shot from that T-20. He's got the 90mm. Barely even scratched the top of the tank. BS hit mods, but what can you do? Okay, he should be backing off from the Indian Panzer, unless he's a moron. Quite possible. No idea what he's playing at, but the Indian Panzer should take care of him no problem. Oops, dunked my shot. Gonna back up, because he should be firing again right about now. Start to turn, 0-point turning, very lovely thing to have. Bam! Good night. Now if Artie's awake, I should be getting the hell out of here right about now. Lost half my health in 2 shots. Not a very good start. But I did get a little greedy for that Scout Panther. Hadn't killed one yet, but I wanted to. Finally did. Yay me. And so far it's 7-0. Wow. Was not expecting that. I'm doing way better than I thought our team would be. But you never know when the team's gonna donk and snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. 3 kills. Doing good so far. Now it's turning into a smash and grab, and I'm pretty certain what they got left. Oh dear. Panther 2, which way is his gun facing? Nope. Okay, he's got the stock turret and the 75mm. Memorizing tanks and what they look like, and with what configurations, is pretty big. Oh crap. Frenchie on my flank. Not a place I want to be at. So the Indian Panzer goes. Now I can't tell if he's AFK or not. And this Indian Panzer's right in the way. Nope, he moved. I think Frenchie's looking at me. Turn slightly. Fire again. Nope. Okay, Frenchie's got his side to me now. Plug one right in the rear. Low damage roll. Go for the weak spot. And get rewarded with a lovely damage roll. Panther 2. Complaining. Another noob team. Well, you didn't do shit to contribute to your team's loss. Well, actually, you did everything to contribute to the loss. So you have nobody to blame but yourself. My team did exceptionally well with nobody dying. I came really close there. Let's get another battle in. Why not? See what we can do. Go 2 for 2. Okay, tier 8 battle again on Moravenka. I've been having a lot of bad luck with this map here of late. And I think I'm going to go where I hate going, which would be the Magic Forest. I honestly do not like that part of the map. But I'm in a tank destroyer. I could go over there, but I don't want to. Hopefully our team doesn't decide lemming into the forest, leaving the cap exposed, and then camp there for the whole freaking game. Which is starting to look like that might be happening. No, it's not. The map can lie a little bit, or at least be deceiving. Oh dear. Scout tanks. Hello, Frenchie. Oh, he stopped. Draw a bead on him. Where is he? Damn it, he got away. You lucky little French bastard. SU-22, 152 is using a 122mm cannon. Good alpha, but not quite as good as the 152 howitzer, though the accuracy and rate of fire is a lot better. So I really can't complain about that. That's his choice, and I'm not going to say anything about it to him. Everybody has their own preference. So now we camp. Doing the tank destroyer thing, we got a little bit going on over here. We got the Black Prince, SU-152, and a Chaffee. Chaffee's a little far back though. Oh no, you know, most of the team is over on the proper side of the map, especially for this game mode. But what I see is a residue, KV5 and stuff like that, doesn't really give me a warm fuzzy feeling, especially about trying to move up. Chaffee got plugged by something. Don't want to move just yet. Haven't heard any shots come this way, so the Chaffee probably took damage earlier on. AMX-12T spotted him. Not sure how, but he did. Now from what I can see, they've got a lot of stuff over towards the middle of the map, which is kind of a worrisome thing for me. So once again, random teams don't always adjust to what's going on. Okay, I see plenty of things over there, but it looks like they're all stuck in the town. Uh-oh, losing 2-1 now. No bueno. Churchill's been spotted. Have no shot at him. Once again, KV5, last spotted over there, does not make me want to move. I might be able to move to a slightly different position, but I don't feel like it's worth the risk. And that's why. Stuff in the forest. Put a good hit into him. Bet you he's thinking an IS this clipped him for that amount of damage. Back off, keep backing off. Try and get behind another bush. Chaffee's about ready to get wiped out. And Black Prince hit him just a split second after I did. Either that I hit him and did no damage, which according to my XVM is the case. Anyways, I'm going to move again, just in case I already was thinking, or actually looking at this part of the map. So I'm going to come up here to this set of bushes. Got a tree just in front of my gun barrel, and I'm a good distance behind the bush. I'm not getting any good spots on anything over there. Oop. Speak too soon and act too late. Just kind of looking around, making sure nothing's sneaking up on me. There's that AMX-12T. See if we can get a shot lined up on that little asshole. It probably shouldn't be talking like that for YouTube videos. But still, let's see if we can get that little pest. Doesn't look like it. It's hiding behind something and I can't see through the forest. I definitely don't want to go up and bump into a KV-5. It would kill me. Simply put. KV-5 definitely is more than capable of killing a JagdTiger, or JagdPanther. Okay, there's a Black Prince. And a Hellcat. See if we can get a view on that Hellcat. No, not seeing anything. Nothing at all. I wish we could get a scout. Oh dear. There's the tank I was worried about meeting. Didn't even track the monster. Hopefully he hasn't spotted where I'm at. Wait for the camo to take place. And then open up. He's not looking at me, so I will oblige him not doing so by plugging shots into him. Keep in mind he's pretty close, 172 meters. He's definitely within spotting range. Go for the R2-D2 and gets taken out by the ISU-1 or the SU-152. Oops, knocked over a tree. Scoot over this way, zag this way, and come over through to here. Get holed up in these. Oh crap, there's a Hellcat. Now he turns in a circle fast enough, like a medium tank, he can actually outpace my turning rate. Unless he stops again, or I can make him stop. Shit. Okay, now I'm in trouble. Jumbo got me. Now the scout starts moving. Lovely. That should be firmly in the bag. I'll never count out idiot teammates. In practice, a tank destroyer should never be doing what I just did, and that's scouting. Oops, why am I bringing that up? We got a video running. That will be the conclusion of this video. Hope everybody enjoyed it.